Greetings, everyone. This is Rockwell's Spot Connection with my review of Terminator Dark Fate. So, yeah, the sixth, God, yeah, the sixth Terminator movie, Dark Fate. What it's about, a killing machine from the future is trying to kill a young woman who's protected by an enhanced soldier from the future, as well as a woman who survived a similar experience. Quick takes: decent sci-fi action movie, and as well as a decent addition to the franchise. It does lean very heavily on one and two, and sometimes that can be detrimental to the movie itself. The cast of note is actually kind of short. We got Linda Hamilton returning as Sarah Connor. Past target of Terminators made by the AI Skynet, which is explained to have never come to be. Spent years off the grid, had an entire episode of America's Most Wanted dedicated to her. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Carl. A T-800 connected to Sarah Connor's past. Runs a drapery business. Mackenzie Davis as Grace, a semi-radically enhanced soldier from the Human Resistance in 2042 sent to the President to protect Danny Ramos. Natalia Reyes as Daniela Danny Ramos, a young woman from Mexico City targeted for termination by the AI Legion. And finally, we have Gabriel Luna as Rev 9, infiltration unit used by Legion to wipe out human resistance. It's designed in actually a way I thought was actually kind of neat, in the fact that you have basically like the traditional, metal skeleton, similar in design to the Terminator endoskeletons we saw throughout previous Terminator movies. But it houses I'm presuming here that it's a nanite solution that can basically allow it to create weapons like the T-1000 did, simple bladed weapons, as well as clothing, and any other objects that it might need to hold, like if, say, it needed to conceal a firearm, they could do so while still holding the firearm. What's really neat about the design is that the nano solution can actually act autonomously and in a physically unconnected manner from the endoskeleton, which makes it, in some ways, multiple enemies at once. And I honestly think that's a really neat design. Kudos to them for that. Anyway, so spoiler breakdown. The movie starts off right off the bat establishing that every Terminator movie that has come out since Terminator 2 no longer counts. It's a few minutes in the beginning. That's that. And we move on to this story. So this story basically kicks off with the arrivals of both Grace and Rev 9 in Mexico City. Both try and find Danny Ramos, and when they do, Rev 9 is chasing Grace and Danny until being briefly stopped by Sarah Connor, who, after a little while, ends up joining them. While Grace is recovering from her fight with Rev 9, she does begin to explain her future origins, such as she traveled to the present from 2042. Skynet, no longer a thing. Never came to be. However, Legion did come to be as an an anti-cyber warfare AI, which then did what Skynet did. Also, Grace is a cybernetically augmented human, not a Terminator. And she has enhanced strength, durability, hearing, eyesight. It does make it kind of interesting. Sarah then explains that how she came to find Grace and Rev 9, as she gets texts from an encrypted number with location and time of a temporal incursion. And so Grace, while they're on the road, Grace manages to, for lack of a better word, hack Sarah's phone and trace the encryption of the text to outside Laredo, Texas. And the coordinates actually match up with a set of coordinates that are tattooed on her stomach, and were tattooed on there before she came to the present. So Danny suggests that the trio contact her uncle for help crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. And while that's happening, Rev 9 basically hacks networks of various security camera networks to, one, discover the location of Danny, Grace, and Sarah, and then extrapolate their potential destination. So as Danny, Grace, and Sarah make their way to the border, Rev 9 has managed to beat them to it and utilizes border control resources to find them and capture them. The idea being they get captured, Danny gets taken to a secure location, and Rev 9 can then catch up and kill her at his leisure. And so when he arrives, he basically begins a breakout at the border control facility, basically to allow for good cover for him killing Danny. The scene is, in all honesty, very reminiscent of the police station shootout from the first Terminator movie. So, and of course, Danny, Grace, and Sarah manage to escape, and they make their way to the location where they were initially heading to, where they meet Carl, who is a T-800 who has found new purpose. So Sarah, Danny, Grace, and Carl end up coming up with a plan to take down Rev 9, and so they arm up. Danny gets her first lessons in shooting. Carl has an extensive arsenal of conventional weapons. After all, he does live in Texas. So then Sarah basically makes arrangements to get an EMP, which to utilize against Rev 9. And it's a drawn-out action sequence with multiple locations for the conclusion of the film, and it's a pretty decent showdown. All right, so the ups and downs. Honestly, aside from just a straight remake, this actually reboots the franchise in a manner that works. Mainly because it does allow for lots of changes. For example, you can cybernetically augment a soldier. Well, why not send that soldier to safeguard, the person who needs protecting, rather than just a regular run-of-the-mill soldier? I'm presuming that I'm guessing that somehow they might be able to. There's a possibility they could send through weapons, but it also does seem like the Rev Nines relied pretty much just on their nanotech for weapons. So sending through an energy weapon just yeah no, not really useful. Like I mentioned earlier, Rev 9 is, in my opinion, actually a pretty interesting concept for a Terminator. I thought that was actually really neat how, you could, basically, he could have the skeleton do something like, say, drive a truck, while the nanites and reform, take the human form and fight Grace. It was it was actually kind of neat because usually would be a case of, okay, well, he's giving up his ride to go do this, but no, he can do both. Plus, yeah, it does basically make for two enemies, and two enemies that you're not going to be able to turn against the other because they're still connected. There's fairly solid action scenes. Pretty much almost every single one, in one way or another, is reminiscent of the original movie, or the original movie and Terminator 2, I should say. It works as both a finale for the series, if it doesn't do that well as a starting point for a new arc in the franchise. So, I would actually I would not be opposed to seeing a continuation of this arc. That's just got a pretty decent primary cast. No one. I'll be honest. No one's really great, but no one is terrible. So they play their parts well. Most of the FX shots look really good. Like I mentioned earlier, it does lean heavily on the nostalgia for the first two movies. And on the downside, it leans heavily on nostalgia for the first two movies, and the big problem there is it felt quite a bit like they really wanted to, hey, remember hey, here's a vehicular chase that involves a big truck and a smaller vehicle. Here's a shootout here's a massacre at a law enforcement agency. Here's so on and so forth. There were some points where it's like, okay, this scene is reminiscent of this, right down to camera angles even. There's a point where Sarah's firing an assault I'm not sure if it was an M4 or I presume it was an M4, but an older M16 is also a possibility. At a helicopter piloted by the Rev 9, and it's the angle of the shot looks just like, reminded me so much of the scene, the escape from Cyberdyne in Terminator 2, where the T-1000 is chasing them in the helicopter, and Sarah's in the back of the SWAT van with an M16 firing, and it was just like, wow, I've seen this shot before. And I mentioned how most of the visual effects are really good. There are some that don't, however, look all that great. There's actually a de-aging shot that didn't work well, in my opinion. But most of the shots are good. So as for overall opinion and rating, well, it's a pretty good reboot of the franchise. Again, it can work on it as either the conclusion or a new beginning, and I think that's great. I'll be content. I will be fairly content either way. It's not like with Genesis where I kind of just like, okay, so where I have questions about things that actually happened in the movie that just weren't that were supposed to be that went unexplained so as to be sequel bait. It does, like I said, it does lean heavily on the first two films, and sometimes it does so to its detriment. But all in all, if you like the Terminator, the at least the first two Terminator movies, at least give this a fair shake. I liked it. This was a great life changing film, but I did enjoy it. I was entertained. And like I said, I would not mind revisiting these characters again. Rating wise, I honestly gotta say a 3.5 out of 5. I mean, this. I expected to be giving this a very low grade, just thinking, great, it's another friggin' Terminator movie. Just what I wanted. But no, it actually was. It exceeded my expectations, which were admittedly quite low. Okay, so that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.